Hello to all my drama students out there, or to anybody who wants to watch this video for some audition advice. Today I'm going to talk about 3 classic mistakes that auditioners make, young auditioners often make when they are going out for a role in a play, particularly when they have to perform a monologue for that audition. So those 3 mistakes that I see all the time are what I call rushing, Johnny one-noting, and not moving well. I don't really have a better name for the third one. So rushing obviously means that you're just speeding through the monologue. And a lot of students do this particularly when they have it really well memorized and really well rehearsed. So it's really, really important that you don't rush through your monologue. And I see this over and over and over. And students in their mind, they don't think they're rushing, but they really are. So it's really important that you take your time when you go through your monologue. So I'm going to give you an example of what not to do, and then I'm going to show you what works better. So I'm going to use this example from Mrs. Peacock's monologue from Clue, and this is the audition that my students have coming up right around the corner. So this is what I see a lot in terms of rushing. By the way, I don't have this memorized, but you should. When you're auditioning, you should have this memorized, okay? So, this is what not to do. Well, I guess I'll break the ice. I mean, I'm used to being a hostess. It's part of my husband's work. Plus, I always host the ladies group for my church on Sundays. It's difficult when a group of new friends meets for the first time, so I'll start the ball rolling. I mean, I have no idea what we're doing here, but I'm very intrigued. And oh my, this soup's delicious, isn't it? Some say hosting parties is boring. Well, it's an integral part of my life as a wife, and oh, I forgot we're not supposed to say who we really are. That happens all the time, more than you would think. Now, the better way to do this, even though this character is supposed to rush, one of her character traits is that she talks too fast. But when you have the character talking too fast, the actor can't talk too fast. So it's a really difficult thing to make the character talk quickly while ensuring that the actor is still going at a pace that the audience can understand. So the character traits for Mrs. Peacock, if you read the character breakdown, it says that she's neurotic and she's quick to hysteria. So you want to choose different levels, and we're going to get to that next when we talk about Johnny one-noting. So we're going to talk, you want to pick different levels, but you want to make sure that you play the character as if she's rushing, but you, the actor, are not rushing. And I'm going to show you how to do that with the same monologue, okay? Now, first you want to think about what she's doing. She says in the monologue, "This soup's delicious." So she's obviously got some sort of food in front of her, right? You may want to sit down when you do this monologue, sit down at a chair or something. Usually auditioners will provide a chair for you. So you may want to sit down. I'm going to remain standing for the purposes of this video, but you want to imagine the table spread out in front of you, and you want to imagine the bowl of soup in front of you, and think about who you're talking to. There are 6 other guests at the table, and you want to really visualize them. You don't want to stare into the eyes of the person you're auditioning for. That feels really awkward. So you want to make sure that you relate to the imaginary characters in the room. And take a beat to absorb the moment before. Don't just jump right into the line. She says, "Well, I guess I'll break the ice." Why is she saying that? Obviously, because there must be some painful, awkward silence going on. So let that silence simmer for a minute before you start your monologue. Here's how I would do it. Well, I guess I'll break the ice. I mean, I'm used to being a hostess. It's part of my husband's work. Plus, I always host the ladies group for my church on Sundays. It's difficult when a group of friends meet for the first time, so I'll start the ball rolling. I mean, I have no idea what we're doing here, but I'm very intrigued, and oh my, this soup's delicious, isn't it? Some say hosting parties is boring. Well, it's an integral part of my life as a wife, and oh, I forgot we're not supposed to say who we really are. So that's an example. That's the character choice that I made. I chose to play her a little bit more nervous, a little bit more frantic, and really looking around at the other characters as much as I could. And it's really important that you make a choice. You don't necessarily have to play her the same way that I did. You could choose to play her a different way as long as you're not letting her quick pace allow you, the actor, to rush. I hope that makes sense. So that's mistake number one, is not rushing. And you could use that with any of these monologues, okay? The second one that we're going to talk about is Johnny one-noting, okay? Johnny one-noting is, it actually comes from an old Broadway musical called Babes in Arms that had the really famous song, Johnny could only sing one note, and Johnny could only sing one note, and the note he sang was this, ah. So poor Johnny One Note was a singer who could only sing one note. Well, actors have to sing many different notes too. You have to play many different notes when you're acting. You don't want to play everything on the same note. And what I mean by note is I mean the same emotional intention or the same type of action throughout the entire monologue. This happens a lot of times whenever someone has to play menacing or angry. They'll just sort of shout the entire monologue. And you really want to find different notes within your acting range to play. If your character is shouting the entire time, it's not going to come across as menacing as you want it to. So if everything's just yelling up here and you're just screaming the whole time, it gets very difficult to listen to, and it starts to lose its meaning after about 4, 5, 6 seconds. So you might choose certain moments to yell, but then you might take it down here, because sometimes playing menacing just like this can be even more intimidating than yelling all the time. So we want to make sure that we're not just playing the whole thing on one note. So I'm going to use Mr. Body's monologue to show you what I mean. So this is a typical way. This is how not to do it. This is what I often see a lot of times in auditions. In your hands, you each have a lethal weapon. You all showed up here tonight because you believed the evidence against you was so terrible that you would do almost anything to keep it a secret. I'm putting that theory to the test. Mr. Wadsworth here is the only other person who knows your secrets, and it's costing me and you dearly to keep him quiet. You see, I wouldn't have to double your payments if I didn't have to pay Wadsworth for his silence. Now, did I call the police tonight, or did Wadsworth call the police so that he could carry out his greedy threat, pay him more, or he reveals us and all of our questionably legal behavior to the police? Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you can manage to somehow get rid of Mr. Wadsworth, I'll have no need to increase your blackmail or exposure to the police. As a matter of truth, if you can help me eliminate Wadsworth, who not only knows all your secrets, but also mine, perhaps I can find it in my heart to eliminate your blackmail altogether and be done with this terrible business once and for all. A lot of students make the mistake of thinking that that's really great acting because they're so impassioned. But as you noticed, I only played one note. That's what I would call really severe Johnny one-noting. When you take a monologue like this, he has a lot of different intentions that he's playing in there. And don't make the mistake of playing emotions, because all I really did was play anger there, right? Don't make the mistake of playing emotions. Play actions, play intentions. What does Mr. Body want? What does any character want? That's the question you want to ask yourself when you're preparing a monologue. So Mr. Body here, what does he want? He wants to entice these people to commit a murder so that he doesn't have to. So that's a really high stakes intention. So you want to play lots of different notes within that monologue. Here's how I would do it. In your hands, you each have a lethal weapon. You all showed up here tonight because you believed the evidence against you was so terrible that you would do anything to keep it a secret. I'm putting that theory to the test. Mr. Wadsworth here is the only other person who knows your secrets, and it's costing me and you dearly to keep him quiet. You see, I wouldn't have to double your payments if I didn't have to pay Mr. Wadsworth for his silence. Now, did I call the police tonight? Or did Mr. Wadsworth call the police here himself so that he can carry out his greedy threat? Pay him more, or he reveals us and all our questionably legal behavior to the police. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you can manage to somehow get rid of Mr. Wadsworth, I'll have no need to increase your blackmail or expose you to the police. As a matter of truth, if you can help me eliminate Mr. Wadsworth, who not only knows all of your secrets, but also mine, Perhaps I can find it in my heart to forgive you and eliminate your blackmail altogether and be done with this terrible business once and for all. So that's how I tried to choose a lot of different intentions to play so that I wasn't just playing the whole monologue up here. Hope that makes sense. So that's the second one. The third mistake that a lot of young auditioners make, and this is a really, really big one, is not being able to move really well. And a lot of students do what I call talking head syndrome, which is where they just keep their body really stiff and they just use their head to act, and everything, all their acting happens from the neck up. You have to remember that when you're acting, you want to embody the character fully from head to toe. So if you're playing Mrs. White, you can't just have a morbid face like here and this is all you're doing. Her whole body has to be engaged, right? What makes her so morbid? Did she really kill all these husbands? How does she walk? Maybe she walks with a sense of mystery. Maybe she walks with a sense of suspicion. How's her posture? Does she hunch her shoulders over? Does she pull them back? If I'm Mrs. Peacock, my whole body is tense and uptight and looking around all the time. If I'm Miss Scarlet, I'm very sassy and very confident, right? I'm going to use my whole body to engage the character, not just my head and my voice. You want to make sure you use your whole body. You also want to make sure that you give yourself some blocking. Blocking is movement on stage. Now, sometimes it's appropriate to just sit or just stand and do the monologue. Other times you want to walk a little bit, but a lot of times when students walk, they tend to just pace back and forth. So I'm going to use Mrs. White's monologue. This is what not to do in terms of movement, okay? I didn't kill my husband. I've been playing the blackmailer because I didn't want a scandal. We had a very humiliating public confrontation. He was deranged. He was a lunatic. He didn't actually seem to like me that much. He had threatened to kill me in public. He was a scientist. So that's one. I'm not going to finish the whole monologue that way. Another thing students do is, as you know, we've talked about in acting class, I call it making the audience seasick. They go like this. He was a scientist. Nuclear physics. He was a stupidly optimistic man. I'm afraid it came as a great shock to him when he died. He was found dead at home. His head had been cut off, but it wasn't me. I've been out all evening at the movies. Do you see how distracting that gets? So you want to make sure that if you move with intention and purpose. Why am I moving? Am I moving over here because I have something to say to somebody? Am I backing up because, whoa, don't get too close? What's my intention? Why am I doing everything that I'm doing? Okay? So I'm going to take a stab at this monologue trying to do all three things. I'm going to not rush. I'm going to pace myself well. I'm going to not Johnny one note. I'm going to differentiate and play lots and lots of different intentions. And I'm also going to move with intention and purpose. No false movements, no random movements, no pacing. Every movement has intention and purpose. Okay? I didn't kill my husband. I've been paying the blackmailer because I didn't want a scandal. We had a very humiliating public confrontation. He was deranged. He was a lunatic. He didn't actually seem to like me that much. He had threatened to kill me in public. He was a scientist, nuclear physics. He was a stupidly optimistic man. I'm afraid it came as a great shock to him when he died. Lost my place. He was found dead at home. His head had been cut right off. But it wasn't me. I'd been out all evening at the movies. Do I miss him, you ask? Well, it's a matter of life after death. Now that he's dead, I have a life. That was my second husband. My first husband, he also disappeared. He was an illusionist. It was his job. But he never reappeared. I guess you could say he wasn't a very good illusionist. But my third husband, I miss him the most. He was an electrician until he got electrocuted. And scene. So I hope that those 3 tips will help you very much as you're preparing your monologues. Remember those really important tips. Don't rush. Don't Johnny one note it. Find lots of different ways to differentiate. Play the intentions and the actions, not the emotions, and make sure every movement has intention and purpose. No random movements, and don't make your audience seasick. I hope this video helps. Good luck with your auditions. Or should I say, break a leg.